up, everybody? Just wanted to talk about the follow-up post that Rebecca made for the Arsenal Divide. Waited a few days since I wanted to have some constructive feedback as much as possible. I was a little frustrated with some of the changes, and I generally try to put out as positive of content as I can. And I think if I had made this right after I read these changes, it would have been a pretty ranty video, which I tried to not do. So let's go over some of the updates that they're making to arcanes, the mods, and then acquisition. And yeah. So as far as the arcane changes go, and overall, I think in general most of the changes they're making are good, mostly tailored towards quality of life. So for the dexterity arcane, it got a couple buffs. So this is the one where when you do damage when you get kills with your melee, you get ranged weapon damage. So combo duration is kind of okay. There are people that run swift momentum in their aura just for the combo duration. It does help even if you're using Naramon. I think with Steel Path, it's not really that big of a deal because enemy density is so high. But, it's a nice little bonus. The holster speed is not really going to be noticeable from going between ranged and melee because there really is no holster speed or holster animation. I really wish with this update that they would have just removed or changed or greatly reduced the holster speed between primaries and secondaries because that can be kind of annoying. This nerf, I honestly just don't understand. So this is one of the things that really had me scratching my head. So this is the arcane where it gives you like reload speed, ammo, and then when you kill an enemy, you get a stacking damage buff, right? Problem is like that weapon is going to kind of tailor itself to, I guess, probably like explosive weapons or weapons you can reliably get kills on with, direct damage. And there's a lot of weapons that have reload speeds that make this timer pretty tight. So if you're using like the Trumna or any other weapon that has a long reload, even though this arcane is reducing your reload speed, this is you do not have a lot of time to keep this buff up. So that's a little kind of concerning. I don't really understand why they made this so short, especially because the other two arcanes, like the dexterity arcane, the buff is like 20 seconds or something. Like crazy. And getting a melee kill is obviously much easier than getting a ranged weapon kill. That's kind of the whole point of this update. So I don't understand this. I think this is very, very this change might make this arcane like dead on arrival outside of the quality of life improvement of the reload speed and ammo, which can be nice. Like Astilla Prime has pretty bad ammo economy, but it's a pretty good weapon otherwise. So maybe if you put this arcane on there, you could maybe drop like ammo mutation or something. But that's such a minor thing. And if you're not keeping this damage buff up, or if it's like extremely difficult to keep this damage buff up, then I just don't know if this arcane is really going to be worth it. It's ironically, I feel like it's starting to look like the melee ranged arcane is probably going to be the best one, which is interesting. So then the galvanized mod changes. Some reduction in costs, which I think is really good. Some increases to the base values. I think this is great. This makes these mods much more reliable, I think. I was a little confused by the capacity changes for these mods because they don't really match up with what the mods were originally. So that's a little strange. Um, yeah, right. So skipping ahead to the beam weapon changes. I think this is a great quality of life change. Anybody who likes beam weapons, this is fantastic. I love like the Phage and the Phantasma and a lot of stuff like well, a lot of the beam weapons I really enjoy using. So this is really nice. I think one change that might be really cool is, and I don't know if this might be like bloat, but it would be really cool if there was an X-list to increase the beam width rather than the beam length. So something like Synapse, which is a beam weapon that already has a decent range, if you could increase the beam width on that, that would be really cool. Or like Galaxian Vandal, which already has like a somewhat of a little AoE around it. Um, so those are all like okay changes. I really don't like this change. Honestly, I feel like this needs to be like 10 seconds or something. Um, the rest of the changes are fine. And then we get to this change. Okay. Moved all galvanized mods to arbitrations from Steel Path. Okay. I understand that I am probably in a minority here, and I'm have been trying to wrap my mind around this the past couple days. I do not understand why people would want these new mods in arbitrations over Steel Path, right? So let's just jump in game really quick. Okay? So, I'm on my boy Inaros. Super boring, but hey, I really like his prime. I think it looks cool. Anyways, so let's say I want to go into a difficult mission, right? So let's just say those two options are Steel Path and Arbitrations. Now, most of the feedback I've seen is that Steel Path requires too specific of a loadout, or Steel Path farming is so boring. Um, Here's what I don't understand, and people complain a lot about like enemy toughness in Steel Path, like specifically armor. People say it's impossible to kill anything in Steel Path because of armor, right? Okay, there are a lot of ways to counter armor in this game. If you play in a group, you could all use corrosive projection. That's a massive decrease in enemy armor. I'm assuming if you're in Steel Path that you probably have helmet. I'm just gonna like go out on a limb and say that. So just from helmet, we have. Breach Surge basically obliterates everything. It doesn't really matter if they have armor. Um, you have Fire Blast, which is an absolutely phenomenal armor strip. So the helmet version for this is 75% armor strip. Um, Really fantastic. You have Pillage, also a great armor strip ability. Requires some strength investment, but it gives any frame, well, outside of an Arosinitis, it gives pretty much any frame shield gating. Um, and then you have Shuriken, which can be augmented to have armor strip. Even Hydroid, you can augment Tempest Barrage to strip armor. Is that optimal? No, right? But I just feel like people look at Steel Path or maybe go into Steel Path like one time and get stomped by Grenier on Earth and just like never go back or something, because in addition to those, like any weapon that does slash damage obliterates Grenier. Grenier are the easiest faction to deal with because there are so many answers to armor in this game, right? Slash damage, glaive prime, guaranteed slash procs, 100 munitions primaries, secondaries that can either use hemorrhage or that have a ton of slash, like Akchigara prime or something, right? Like there is corrosive, there's viral, there's heat. You can take a weapon like phage, right? So if you have phage, and I have a ribbon on here, it doesn't matter. I could just take this off, right? Phage can have heat, viral, and corrosive. There are several weapons that can have this combination, right? Phage, um, um, Catabolist, Synapse, Scourge. Those weapons dumpster Grenier. When you put all of these status effects on Grenier, they melt. It doesn't really matter what level they are. Okay? Um, so I guess what I'm saying, for me personally, it comes down to player agency, right? Like I don't really have a whole massive amount of time to play Warframe anymore. I'm really busy with my job. I have kids. I think a lot of people who play Warframe are in the same like age demographic as I am, and it's like, I don't really play video games for hours and hours on end every day. Some people do, and that's great for them. Like, it's their life. Um, but for me, like, this is perfect. I don't really want to do a defense mission against Infested. I hate playing against Infested because of their auras, preventing status effects, and especially the infuriating energy drain that they have. Infested are actually the faction that I like playing against the least by far, right? So if I wanted to farm for those new galvanized mods, which are a huge portion of the buffs, quote unquote, that ranged weapons are getting, I have to do this garbage mission that I would never, ever, ever do otherwise. And I have to stay in there for a really long time for it to be worth it because these only happen once every hour, right? So, like with Steel Path, you have your incursions, but all these missions only last 5 minutes, maybe 6 or 7 minutes, right? Like the defense missions might last a little longer. But once you're done, you can leave, and they're also buffing the steel essence you get from incursions. So there is a guaranteed way of farming steel essence. If you do your incursions every day, wipe your hands up, you're done. And with the changes they're making to acolytes, it will be almost guaranteed that you will find an acolyte by the end of an incursion. So right now, it's like about 50-50 because usually these missions take about 5-6 minutes, and that's like the beginning of the timer for acolytes to show up. So when I do all my incursions for the day, it's like 50% chance that I'll find an acolyte, which is whatever. And then that's even more guaranteed steel essence, right? And if you have a resource booster, oh, awesome. Now you're getting like 7 steel essence per mission. I think they're buffing this to 5 instead of 3. That's 9 per mission. I did an arbitration for like 45 minutes, and I got like 5 or like 8 or 9 Vitus Essence. And it's like, okay, well, that feels terrible. And another common thing I hear, in addition to not liking the armor from Steel Path, the armor modifier, a lot of people say that, oh, you need these really, really specialized setups for farming Steel Path, right? If you're going to farm instead of just doing the dailies. Well, guess what the meta for nearly every arbitration mission is? Korra, Necros, Nova. Does that sound familiar? Because it's actually the same exact meta setup that people use in Steel Path. Isn't that wild? So it turns out if you want to farm a lot of shit, you take the 2 good loot frames and Nova. It doesn't really matter what mode you're doing. I don't know why people pretend that arbitrations are somehow better to farm. If anything, they're way worse to farm because the only way to get Vitus Essence is from drops. Steel Essence, there's options. In addition, if I wanted to just do a random Steel Path mission, I can do any of these nodes. Any of them. There's some tile sets that I really, really like playing on. There's others that I really hate playing on. There's some factions I like to play against, some I hate to play against, right? Arbitrations take all that choice away from you. Literally, all of your choice is gone. And if you want to be efficient at farming arbitrations and Vitus Essence, you better either be running a good group or you basically have to run a loot frame by yourself. And then you have to deal with the ultimate anti-fun mechanic in all of Warframe, which are arbitration drones, which once again take away nearly all of your agency because there's really only a couple good weapons at killing those, so you better bring one of those, right? Especially after they added shield gating. So it's like, I just feel like Steel Path offers so much more choice. And arbitration, it has like all of the worst things about like Eidolons, where it's like time gated and all this nonsense. And then on top of that, there's like the whole death mechanic and whatever. So I personally, I've really been trying to understand why people like arbitrations. I just don't really get it. Steel Essence is like the most efficient resource to grind in the game. Vitus Essence is one of the least. And on top of that, any of the good rewards from arbitrations themselves, the good rewards really only start on rotation C. So you have to, once again, you're staying in a mission for bare minimum 20 minutes. I can bang out almost all of the incursions for Steel Path in 20 minutes. And on top of that, the arcanes are coming from acolytes. We could have grinded both of the gun quote unquote buffs, because no guns are actually getting buffed, it's just arcanes and mods. We could have grinded those at the same time. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Okay. I feel like I'm just going on and on about this. I obviously don't understand why people like arbitrations. I'm not gonna lie, like I feel like DE likes that because hey, now people are gonna be doing two different game modes instead of just farming the same one. Yeah, that's probably like, a little pessimistic of me to say, but I honestly do not think that arbitrations are more new player friendly than Steel Path. I remember when I first went into arbitrations, and I got dumpstered way more than when I went into Steel Path, right? And I feel like Steel Path is infinitely more solo friendly than arbitrations. I feel like arbitrations, you almost have to run a pre-made group to really be efficient. Steel Path, I've done all my Steel Path farming solo, and I have gotten every single Umbra Forma and most of the Riven rewards playing solo. And I would never have been able to do it that efficiently in arbitrations. So, I'm just gonna put my hands up, dance it away. So those are my thoughts. I really hope that they just add the rewards to both stores. I feel like that's the best option, but we'll see when the patch comes, which is hopefully soon. Because honestly, I really want to play Ureli. She looks sick. So hope everybody has a good one, and thanks for hanging out.